welcome back. You're still watching Business Morning right here on Channels Television. The National Pension Commission, they've announced major reforms, and it's all aimed at revolutionizing pension sector for more returns. The reform started with the Pension Reform Act of 2014, which repealed the Pension Reform Act of 2004. And one of the most fundamental reforms there is the transition from the old unsustainable defined benefit scheme to the contributory pension scheme, CPS. Under the old system, pensions were a direct government obligation, leading to huge liabilities, corruption, and lack of transparency. Also, contribution rate has changed. The Pension Reforms Act of 2014 increased the minimum mandatory contributory rate. There's a major recent reform which became effective in June this year. It involves a new circular that empowers pension fund administrators to approve and process certain benefit applications directly. Previously, many benefit applications required pre-approval from the National Pension Commission, that's PENCOM, which led to delays. And another very interesting part is that contributors have access to a portion of their balance to make an equity contribution for a residential mortgage. This is supposed to help Nigerians who have a pension saving to account to own their own homes. The effectiveness of that, obviously, as other things in Nigeria, leaves a lot of question, you know. But let's speak to someone whom I think you know. I think they call her the Queen of Pension or Queen of
Retirement Planning.
Retirement Planning, that's what she is. Well, we have right here in the studio the founder of Bloomberg's platform and also managing partner and co-founder of Aveti Professional Manager, Mrs. Ian Samuel-Rungwe. Good to see you right here outside LinkedIn, you know, where you always give tips and draw people's attention that, yes, look, you're not going to be active forever. You need to use your active days to plan for your inactive days, yes, so you can sustain your lifestyle. But let me just ask you generally, before we get to all of those reforms, how has the response been for Nigerians? Because it wasn't a very popular topic before now.
Well, and it still is not, no. But because it is somewhat mandatory in the formal sector, so many people are doing it. I mean, you do have to make your contributions with your employer also supplying their own portion. However, people are still not paying enough attention, which is why I do what I do, to bring attention, because your pension years or retirement years could easily be like 1/3 of your life. So how is that not important enough for you to pay attention to, if you know what I mean? So yes, the participation has not been very warm, you know, and it's even worse in the informal sector. The participation is pretty low.
Informal sector, because I do know that, I mean, even in the schemes and the new acts and all of that, there's also provision for informal sector. They can have their own, but I guess that has not been really adopted.
Well, it's been adopted. I mean, PENCOM has introduced the micro pension plan, right? And this is for artisans, traders, self-employed professionals. But I suspect that the awareness and sensitization hasn't been good enough because, I mean, people are still struggling with survival and how to make a daily living. Talk more of now having to save for some years that you're not even sure you're going to make, if you know what I mean. So that is still, you know, you still have some challenges, but I think it can be rectified because...
Is it a cultural mindset? Does it contribute to...
I mean, the entire pension thing is a cultural mindset. However, I think a lot of it has to do with the wounds of the defined benefit scheme, where we saw, you know, the people in pains after working, they couldn't access their benefits. So I think those wounds are still there. However, I think this contributory pension scheme is solid. PENCOM has done a very good job in terms of ensuring that people would have something to access after they retire. And those who have seen the benefits already. However, the informal sector forms 80% thereabouts. So the people that are still under it now are maybe 20 or 20-something%, not good enough, if you know what I mean. Because for some people, if they were not compelled to, they wouldn't. And which is
even some employers.
Even some employers, because sometimes we still, you know, encounter delayed remittances by employers. But I mean, that runs foul of the law. So you can actually report your employer if it came to that. So yeah, so that's where we are. Not so popular yet, apparently.
Yeah, I wonder if there's something you think can be done, because as you noted, a major part of Nigeria's economy is they are in the informal sector.
Yes.
And so if we don't have the informal sector participating, then there needs to be some action taken. I wonder how you think that can be rectified.
For one, there has to be increased an awareness campaign, you know, to bring people to understand what this would mean to them when they come out of their businesses or in their later years. And also the fact that there's no financial literacy in the country. So I think a lot can be done in that wise, you know, where you get people to understand that, listen, a time would come when you will not be strong enough maybe to do this that you do. What will be your fallback plan? You know, so I think that is really important. And also, perhaps government can also step in terms of maybe even tying some loan, you know, to your pension contributions in the informal sector, because that's a clear benefit that will be very exciting for people in the informal sector. And maybe, I don't know if this is possible, but I also feel that if there's some contributory aspect on the part of government, I know that's a long shot, right? To get people to say, okay, listen, if government will do this for you if you do this. Do you understand? Also, you can access, you know, loans if you have this in place. And of course, the financial awareness and literacy, and then just the total sensitization. People need to understand what this is about, and they have to relate it to how it concerns them personally. I don't think we've done enough in that wise.
I guess we need more retirement queens and kings of retirement plan.
There can only be one.
There can only be only one queen. Okay, but let's look at some of the reforms.
Yeah.
PENCOM has been really active,
yes,
you know, especially in the current leadership, because we women, we always...
You know what I mean?
It's very active.
Yes.
You know, we've seen a lot of ideas coming up, looking for alternative investment platforms in order to boost, you know, the revenue that come and all of that. And the most interesting for me, pardon me, because I need mortgage, is the pension for mortgage.
Yes.
But accessing, you know, you talked about access being a discouraging factor in the former act.
Yes.
Have you met people who've been able to access their pension for mortgage?
Very easily. And first of all,
I mean, in practical terms.
In practical terms.
Because I've had conversation with some banks who are supposed to manage this, and they make it seem so easy. But then when you go to the back end to actually access it, it's another, I've tried it before.
Well, let me say this, that there are documentations you have to have in place. And sometimes that is the part that, you know, Nigerians would feel you should be able to bypass some. But no, we're talking mortgage now. This is a long-term facility. So you do have to have those documentations in place. And the law says that if you have more than 3 years to retirement, then, you know, you can access those ones. The PFAs are very well run. So are the PFCs who hold the funds. So I haven't come across anybody who hasn't been able to access mortgage loans. People in employment can, but I feel also that sometimes there's just that wariness of, you know, filling forms, getting documentations. Most of us, I'm like that when it comes to documentation. So perhaps that could be a deterring factor. However, the documentations have to be in place.
Okay, so I agree with the documentation. We're not used to it. I mean, we're not used to it. But I think that another deterring factor is the fact that, so you have your money, you can access 25% of your pension for equity. Yes. And then the equity you're required is to be maybe like 10 million at least. And your 25% is 1.5 million. Where do you start from? Do you understand? It's almost like it doesn't help at all.
I know, but let's also be clear that if you want to take out a mortgage loan, you can't be that person that has 5 million in your retirement savings account, if you know what I mean, right? So I guess this is for a certain level of, you know, workers. And if you're at that level, then there's no reason why you should not be able to. Perhaps it may not work for everybody, because we know how real estate, pricing is, especially in a place like Lagos. So perhaps it's not really for everyone, but if you can afford it, then it's available to
but
you.
we wish it was for more people, you know. So
I know.
We're in fact, we're out of time, but I really have to ask you this. Apart from all of these formalities, the pension and everything, as individuals, there are things I believe we're supposed to be conscious of or doing towards our retirement age.
Yes.
What are some of those tips, maybe a few of it?
Right. So the pension plan is just a part of the entire retirement puzzle, right? So there's the aspect of making sure you have diversification in your investments, so that you have multiple sources of income that would augment your retirement funds. Then, of course, you have to have a good health plan in place, because retirement or sickness in retirement can easily derail your retirement plans. So you have to have a good health plan in place. Take out a health mortgage if you can. Make sure you are eating right. This is the time to look out for those things. And because older age can be a lonely place, you can also ensure that you try to look at ways of ensuring that there is no isolation. So widen your network, look out for places where you can have contact with people and be able to engage. Put your estate plan in place and do it early, so that in the event that anything happens, your beneficiaries or dependents will have something to fall back on.
In Nigeria, we don't want to hear anything happen.
I know.
There's no need for that. But thank you so much for sharing those tips with us and your time this morning. Founder of the Bloombox platform and managing partner, co-founder of Averti Professional Manager, Mrs. Inyang Samurube, but you know her more as the queen of retirement plan. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, and it's been a pleasure being here.
Same here.